we've seen a couple of videos of you, Anthony, casting like a 50 or an 80 or something giant, some giant outfit to a tailing swordfish. And that's pretty unique to Southern California, right? Or in the Baja area.
I've been I've been casting baits, with conventional overhead, ever since I can remember, 6 or 7 years old. I used to walk out to the
And how
to
did
the
it
park
start out? Like, what was the origin story?
Too much alcohol.
Really? Okay.
Says if God wanted us to have fiberglass boats, he would have given us fiberglass trees.
It's for fishermen. It's not for taking the wife and the wife's friends.
I think that it's a really, really pretty bit.
And then there was a blur that went by and ended up in the cockpit, as far as if I can remember correctly.
Welcome back to State of Sport Fishing Podcast. I'm Nick Carullo. I'm joined with me, my co-host Anthony Pino with Hooked Optics and captain of the Blood Money. Tonight, some special guests, Anthony Hsieh and Steve Lassley, owner and captain of the Bad Company operation. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Happy to be here.
So, guys, I'm sure most everybody's familiar with you guys, but we'd love to hear a little bit more and kind of maybe how you guys kind of connected and kind of started.
I guess I could start. Just a fun kid that loves to fish, and I've been fishing early on, and grew around boats. And I actually gave it a couple of years working on the local sport boats here. And as I got to work, I transitioned to private boats. And in Southern California, there's a big sport boat community, which means that you pay a ticket and then you get onto the boats, whether it's overnight, 3/4 day or whatnot. But I worked the 82 and the 83 summers, and there was an El Nino back then, so the fishing was pretty amazing. Paid $15 a day and worked 90 plus straight days, which is nothing for me. It wore me out. And I got burned out standing on the top of the bait tank and chumming and scrubbing a 65-foot boat every single day. And then I took a year off, 84, from fishing, the only year that I ever took off. And then end of 84, I purchased my first boat, which is a 17-foot whaler. And then I discovered Baja California, started to tow it down, and started exploring that entire peninsula, all the way down to Cabo, and then obviously Mag Bay and Loreto and La Paz and all those other cities and different types of fisheries. And then fortunately for me, as my professional career advanced, being a self-made guy, my financial resources changed. So my curiosity really fueled some of these adventures. And I'd always known of Steve. He's a hero, not just here, but primarily in the fishing community. And Steve and I got to know each other, and right around mid 2000s, Steve and I came together. He's really the first and the only captain that has ever driven for me. So I drove my own boat all the way until the mid 2000s, 2005 or 2006 or something like that. And we've been fishing together ever since. So it's been a great matchup. He's been an amazing friend to me. And we're hopefully about to write the semi to the last, maybe the last chapter of our fishing careers here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, man. So I kind of, Anthony and I have very similar backgrounds. That's kind of probably why we work so well together and, have such a good time. And we have the same understanding kind of the water and the ocean and the way things bite and the way things work from our perspective. But I started on the sport boats when I was super young too, like 13 years old or something, back in 1912. And since then we just it kind of expanded to the point where I bought my own commercial boat at 17 and took off fishing. And that kind of ruined my life. I've never really looked back. I've either been on commercial fishing boats or sport boats. And then I kind of got suckered into the yacht thing. Somehow I didn't even really know what they were. I was a commercial fisherman, and they were shutting down. They weren't really shutting down our harpoon fishery, but they took away the airplanes, and then they allowed the gill nets to start fishing. And I saw the end was kind of coming to it was getting close to the end of my career as far as the sword fishery went. So I got onto some yachts and then the tournaments, and just one thing kind of led to another. And I always liked Anthony and his attitude, and he fished hard, and he was out fishing a very high percentage of the captains, if not all the captains, on a routine basis. And one day he knew that I was kind of drifting apart from the group that I was with. And he called me up to his office and we sat down and he said, well, why don't we put this program together? And he explained things to me. I said, let's think about it. And we'll get back together. When I get back, I was going down to fish another tournament in Mazatlan, and I got the first day into the tournament and I got a sat phone call and he said, I just bought your boat. So I guess that meant that we had discussed it and thought about it long enough. And here we are. I think that was 2003. So that was 19 years ago.
Wow. And that boat was the 92 foot, the Southern.
That was a 55.
Okay.
That we campaigned for 3 or 4 years until we started building the Vikings.
Okay, but that was that like your what I would consider, not knowing anything about Southern California, your traditional Southern California looking boat.
No, it was a 55 convertible, but we modified the heck out of it. We had the sonar, the massive tuna tubes, and we put a West Coast tower on it so you could actually see out of it, the sides, and glass properly and do all that stuff.
And that boat was primarily a Cabo boat. So, it had to do all the blue and black marlin stuff out the back, but we also designed it so that you can have some fun, catching stripers in Cabo and Mag Bay, but at the same time to be competitive in Southern California on the striped marlin fishery up here. So it was primarily a, East Coast boat that was modified for it to do all of those things that we just talked about.
Then that's where it started, and you guys rolled into a Viking after that. Is where you were headed, Steve?
Yeah, then we got to design. Anthony bought Crow's. So many stories that go along with it, but through the course of the time, he bought Crow's Nest yachts, and we were able to modify a bunch of Vikings. We actually came up with these Bad Company edition boats, and
I remember that.
Had a pretty good time. Yeah, we had a pretty good time campaigning all those. That's kind of where the cat got out of the bag a little bit with the combination of the sonar and tuna tube, fishery. But that was those were some beautiful boats. We still got that first ones over in Australia right now. We're hoping to hop on it here in September and fish that one in the Barrier Reef.
One of my, bright ideas was I sold my second business, and I retired from being a CEO at the time for a company called Interactive Corp. The president and CEO of Lending Tree back then. So I left the company in 2007. And decided I was bored. So I said, hey, Steve, let's build boats. So I go out and I buy the largest yacht dealership on the West Coast. We had 3 locations and wasn't enough. So I bought a 4th location and became the exclusive Viking dealer throughout the entire West Coast, from Seattle down to Cabo. And we got to know the Healy's and the entire Viking organization, which we really enjoyed. And we started building these custom Bad Company editions called BCE. And Steve was obviously the primary quarterback and instrumental in building these boats out. And even today, 2022, although it's no longer called BCE, but all the systems that Steve designed from 14 years ago are still being used in Vikings today. So that just gives you an idea of how much innovation Steve has had to this industry. And Steve made a very good point there, and that is, we kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit on some of these techniques that Steve and some of the other greats that have been innovating for a long period of time. And we also have to remember, for all the listeners out there, that contemporary sport fishing is only 120, 130 years old. The techniques that are, in Australia versus Costa Rica versus Florida versus Texas versus Cabo versus California is all uniquely different. And, none of us can say our techniques is better than anybody else's. But what we can say is that there's not been a cross-pollination of all of these techniques that's been utilized by very sharp and wise fishermen, so that you can grab, certain techniques for the appropriate day or the type of conditions that you have, because we all grown up fishing the same waters and you learn from the people that, have taught you. But one of the things that I've recognize anyways from traveling is that everybody's way is always claimed the best way, because that's just the way that you learn how to do it. And I think it's just really interesting to see some sort of cross-pollination now.
Yeah.
And I think you're starting to see that in Costa Rica quite a bit, a little bit of the mixture between different regions or different countries that utilizing different techniques. And it'd be really interesting, once we start going to Australia and the South Pacific and the Indian Ocean and seeing some of the guys in the North and the South Atlantic and how they all do things. There's just all different types of methods, and that's what makes fishing so interesting.
Speaking of unique techniques and unique fishing, you guys team up to do something pretty wild that I don't see, but we've seen a couple of videos of you, Anthony, casting like a 50 or an 80 or something giant, some giant outfit to a tailing swordfish. And that's pretty unique to Southern California, right? Or in the Baja area, or, I'm sure it's not completely unique, but the way you guys do it, seems pretty wild.
Steve, I'm sure Steve can chime in on this. I mean, he's one of the sort of the pioneers of this. But, I've been casting baits, with conventional overhead, ever since I can remember 6 or 7 years old. I used to walk out to the park and start slinging, 4-ounce weights out there. I thought I was absolutely nuts. And I used to have, a bucket of water just so I can wet my line out there, because, it was tough casting dry line. But, so I would tell you that it is the absolute favorite that of fishing that I like to do. It's very difficult. It's a lot of work. You're out there all day, and on the average you see about 2 a day on the average, and that's with 4 guys burning their eyeballs all day behind gyro binoculars. But when the moment of truth comes and you're on that pulpit and Steve's charging up on it, and you got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 knots of wind, and the boat's moving at 5, 6, 7 knots, and you got a fish that's swimming at a couple, 3 knots, to throw that bait, heavy tackle, to get that bait right in front of that swordfish to try to entice a bite, because surface swords don't feed. They feed in the deep, as you know. It's just an absolute thrill, and it's the technique is not technique has been around for decades, but it's becoming a little bit of a lost art, just because you don't get a lot of shots at it, and you're going to have to be totally disciplined and committed. Most of the boats find a swordfish when it gets them an aha moment. They're not really looking for it, and they just find it by luck, and a lot of times they're just not prepared for it. So but Steve, you can add your 2 cents. I know that Steve enjoys it as much as I do.
Yeah, so I fished with a harpoon for a bunch of years, 20 some years. So got fairly good at figuring out, where they come from, where they go, and what conditions they show in. And, as the conditions change, we got to move with those changes. And then Anthony and I, we've kind of developed a method together where normally, if you find a swordfish, sometimes you'll bait, 8 or 10 of them to maybe get a bite. And we got it down. We're getting a bite, or at least a reaction, out of about every 3 fish now, or 4. The bite to catch ratio is pretty minimal, because they're terrible eaters. They don't see what's in front of them real good, and they have a hard time catching it. There'll be a lot of naysayers on both sides of the way that we do it. But the bottom line is that we get a tremendous amount of bites out of a fish that typically doesn't bite. And, but yeah, it's super fun. I mean, you watch the thing swatting at it, and the precision of those swats is pretty incredible. We do a deal where we get our commercial license, and we got a thing where it's 3 strikes and you're out. So Anthony will cast 3 baits at it, and if it doesn't eat, or we don't get a good reaction, we'll harpoon it. Well, one of them, one time, he cast a bait, and you can't keep your line tight like you normally do to feel the bite, and they'll swat it off the hook, or else they'll swat it off the hook. Well, Anthony did everything right. He came back, it picked him, it took his bait, and the fish came up and finned again. And we went over and presented another bait to it. He made another good cast, got another bite out of it. He did everything right, but swatted the bait off the hook again. We came back, and then we couldn't find the fish anymore. We came back and we found it about 20 minutes later, and we wound up harpooning it. And this fish had swatted the bait in the exact same spot, right below the chin, right where the little thinnest part is, underneath the gill rakers. And when we brought it up and cleaned it, it had both of his baits in its stomach. But that just goes to show you he's swatting with that thing, and they're swatting so fast you can barely see it. It's going so quick, but it's really cool for Anthony because a lot of times they're eating it under his feet like that, or all upside down and all balled up, but they still have the precision to make that type of a hit on the bait. But it really is. I think it's some of the most exciting fishing there is.
It's a super cool interaction for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you have this wild animal, it's not like a blue or black, right? Blue or black, they want nothing to do with you. You know, they get a little squirrely, and you know, obviously they come up on the prop wash and get curious, but they go away. These things, you know, they're like a puppy. You know, they're curious and they're mean and they're aggressive, and you know, many of them, you know, would actually glide, and Steve can describe it a lot better. They kick and turn sideways, and they do that right in front of me with their big eyes and looking at me like, you know, who the hell are you? I mean, they're really aggressive little, you know, and that's what fuels a love-hate relationship. And back to Steve's point, I have pictures of the fish that we ended up getting out of the stomach of that one fish that Steve talked about. And they're both in the exact same spot in the mackerel. Wow. Exact same spot. And they swat it off, and when it's not on that leader anymore, they eat it.
That's crazy. It's incredible.
How many have you caught doing that? A lot?
Not a lot. I caught 9.
All right.
And I think that's with 30 something hookups. So
wow. And what's the typical size on those fish?
The typical size is 250. We hooked one 3 years ago. It was fully grown. Steve was calling it 4+. I was calling it 5+. We had it on. How long did we had it on, Steve? About 3 hours?
Yeah, a long time. I mean, there's a lot of them you'll never catch. The ones up on the surface anyway. I don't care what you do. Some of them we harpooned. We had on the gear, you know, 10, 12 hours. A couple of them, and you hook the wrong one, you're not going to catch. But I would have called that fish 500 all day that Anthony's talking about. You know, it's the only fish in the ocean that when you hook it and it's a big one and it jumps behind the boat, everybody on the boat goes, oh, because you know your chances of catching it are pretty slim.
So you've caught 9, Anthony, in how many years of this?
All my life.
All your life. That's
all my life. So, you know, people ask me, hey, Anthony, what do you want to accomplish on this world tour? You know, how many big fish you want to get? And I just tell people, look, I mean, all we want to do is just keep the program together, keep turnover minimal, keep everybody healthy, don't get any trouble with any, you know, countries, and stay safe, because we're going to be traveling to some weird places. Don't get sick, stay healthy, and all those things. And then, you know, whatever big fish we see, whatever we catch. The only thing I want is I want a surface sword in the Atlantic, and I want a surface sword in the Indian. I really, that in my mind is a super slam in my own way.
Wow.
Is to get a surface sword in the Indian Ocean, a surface sword in the Atlantic, which we obviously, Steve and I haven't seen them, but you know, there are traditional places where there used to be harpoon fisheries in some parts of those world, you know, 50, 60, 70 years ago. And then we have, you know, some friends that tell us that, you know, they've seen surface swords, but sometimes, you know, until you see it, you can't confirm it, because sometimes it's a shark. Sometimes it could be, you know, other types of marlins. You just don't know if it's confirmed or not. But we have videos from folks that have sent us stuff from the Indian Ocean, and we hear from, you know, well-respected captains that, you know, they float in the Azores. So I would love to have that opportunity. And we put on a goofy bow rail on the Spencer, which, you know, I was afraid that I was going to get life threats from boys from Florida,
North Carolina.
Bow rail on a Spencer. But we did. We put a removable one with no pulpit. So, you know, there's no, you know, bow bait tank up there. So we're going to have to, you know, figure out how I can get a live bait from the cockpit into the bow, and, you know, for the bait to stay alive, and for us to approach on the fish, and for me to make a decent cast at it. So we'll be interested to see. And some of the stuff, you know, we're going to film. We might not show it because we're going to be all looking goofy up there, but hopefully it'll work, and hopefully we'll see a few.
I've actually happened to see a couple off Florida and the Bahamas. I mean, not many, but I've seen a few of them.
That gives us hope.
No mistaking them. I can tell you that.
No, there's not.
Purples
Yeah.
can be.
Do you get any of them to eat, Nick?
Mm-mm.
No.
Had a couple of times they glance at it or anything, but not enough. I mean, it would be random to see them, so it's not like we were ready.
Yeah, but I hope we have a shot at one in Atlantic, and I hope we have a shot in the Indian. That's something that I would love to have that in my dreams, is get two surface swords, one in each of those oceans. That'd be fantastic.
Is that the plan for you guys now? Is like South Pacific, Indian Ocean?
I think for the rest of this year we're North Atlantic. The typical pattern that some of the legends before us have already carved out, known spots, Madeira and Azores, and then beginning of next year at the end of this year we'll do October and November on the Great Barrier Reef, because we have our 60-foot Viking there, and then beginning of next year we're shifting the 150 mothership, like carrying the 33 LNH to South Atlantic. So we're still trying to figure out where we're going to go to Angola or Senegal, or even go to Ascensions. And then about this time next year, I'll end up in Cape Verde. And then we'll repeat again, going to Madeira and all that. But we'll have a second option, because next year we're currently building a bigger mothership, a 175, that's going to have a helicopter on it. And once it's done, it's going to go through the Med and come down the canal there and drop into the Indian Ocean. So next year, right around this time, a second mothership will be ready, and we'll have a choice between going to the Indian Ocean or going to the Atlantic, depending on where the bite is.
Wow, that's incredible.
Amazing.
How long? I mean, you've had a pretty prolific sport fishing operation for almost 2 decades, correct, or even longer than that. But how long has this been in this sort of this? I don't even know what to call it. Basically, a lifestyle is what you're gonna do. How long has this sort of operation been in your mind?
Well, we've always traveled, just not this far.
Yeah,
we've done, of course, Panama, the Piñas Bay stuff, and Costa Rica, and Steve and I have kept, been going to Cabo for 3 decades. I used to tow my boat down to Cabo, as I explained. And then I had my first twin diesel down there in the early 90s. And then we've had 2 boats in Kona for, I think, 16, 17 years. I put in over 600 days on the water in Kona. Kona is a great place for big fish. It's one of the legendary places in the world. But, if you really just think of, we all have X number of days, right? And, as much as I enjoy the water, and I always do enjoy the water, you start doing calculations, especially a guy like me, start thinking about numbers and math and risks and rewards. And, I fished over 600 days in Kona. It's a great place. It's safe. It's America. It's, you're not going to get, into trouble there. But, Gene Vanderhook and some of those guys, and Kevin Nakamura and the Parkers, they got 2, 3, 4 branders each, and they've been fishing 200 days a year for 20, 30, 40 years. I put on 600 days there. I've seen 3 granders, and I pulled a hook on all 3. I just don't have that many 600 days left. So, I decided that, I'm going to shift. I'm going to go back to fun fishing, which Steve and I have been doing with swordfish and catching, striped marlin and all that. And I'm just thinking, look, I'm going to put 60 to 80 days a year fishing. Where can I go to maximize my chances to see as much as I need to see? And I start just thinking, okay, well, here's all the 70% of the population in the U.S. on the Eastern Seaboard, and you can see where fishing has been done the most. On the left coast, there hasn't been any, that much exploration. There's, one of our great friends, Pete Grosbeck, that was just inducted in the IGFA Hall of Fame, has done a mothership operation 25 years ago called OP. But outside of that, there hasn't been that many mothership operations in the Pacific, and very little has been done in the Indian. So I just want to explore that, but at the same time, really leverage the notes that other motherships have done on the Atlantic. And then, with these days, with aviation being, so precise and so fast, I've been fortunate to have the resources to have a great aviation program, so we can zig or zag, go east or go west, depending on where we think the fish is.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Steve, are you have you done anything in South Pacific yet, or if not, like how excited are you to go explore that? I mean, I know for me that's like
Yeah,
a
man.
wonder of the world.
Absolutely. It's super exciting. Adventure has always been a giant part of my life, that I never really stretched it out too far. And I probably should have. I would have liked to really gone to like Australia years ago or something like that. But, we had all these fin and swordfish, and like the biggest one I ever got was 680 dressed. So we had a pretty good grade of swordfish over here. And I really enjoyed that fishery. And then we had Mag Bay. So if you want to catch a bunch of marlin, I don't know how you beat that. I started hanging out there in 84. We started spending extended periods of time and, up to 2 months straight. And we used to keep cars there and, run our groups back and forth from Loretto and all that. And then, we had the black and blue marlin in Cabo. And then we had the outer islands down there, the Revillagigedos, San Benedicto and Socorro and Benedict, all those islands, Roca Partida. And man, we had the world record, the biggest yellowfin on the planet lived there. And nobody fished blue marlin around there. I fished a lot of blue marlin around there. I caught my biggest one there ever. And there was no boat. So I got to go to a lot of places where there was no boats and the fishing was, kind of off the charts. And I didn't have much of a reason to go much further. And, when we were going where we were going, it was like really super remote. Being in Mag Bay, there was a lot of times I'd fish there 8 or 10 days and never see another boat, or we go up in the Gulf or something and not see any boats up there. So I think after fishing there extensively for, 30 years or 35 years, yeah, and watching, more and more pressure showing up there all the time, I'm looking forward to becoming the intruder into some of these places and now be the guy from the outside coming in and very much looking forward to some new area. Certainly. Absolutely. All my spare time now is spent, sea surface temperature charts and currents and topography and talking with people that have already been there. James Roberts has told me that, he'd be happy to sit down, and Andy Moyes has told me the same thing, and we've got some friends over in Madeira, and, we've got a great connection with Hoggy over in Australia. So we're certainly getting input from all the right people and going to be there the right times. And we get a little bit of luck with some conditions, and we ought to go have a pretty good time, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering about that, Steve. Like when Anthony comes to you with like maybe a potential place, like what type of research goes into like maybe adding it to the schedule, or maybe putting it off to the side for a while? Like is there like a process you go through when it comes to, trying to figure out places, or do you just?
Well, before Steve answers that, anytime I have an idea, he tells me it's the hand over the face emoji.
I'm sure.
That's what he always responds first. Here we go again. I think, before we run out of time, and I know we're still right in the middle of it, I just want to say that Steve is so scientific and so mechanical and so innovative and so process driven that all through the day, I'll watch this man. I mean, I've been fishing with him, sitting next to him for 20 years. I know the way he thinks. I don't think the way he thinks because he processes things all day long. And I make fun about it. When he says to me, hey, I got a hit on a sonar, and I would ask him, is it male or female? Because this guy measures every single thing. He watches birds all day long, what they're doing, the direction they're flying, what type of birds, how fast they're flying. And this guy is processing all day long, and he varies different things. And he's constantly calculating. He needs to be around for a long time, because I tell people all the time, when Steve makes a left, I never, ever, ever question why he makes a left. I can't imagine anybody else driving for me. If they make a left, the first thing I'm going to think about, well, wait a minute, I just seen 15 birds flying to the right.
Yeah.
So, I'm not buttering him up. I just want the audience to understand that, the man is successful because he works damn hard. And at the end of the day, he's mentally spent. So, because he's processing all day long. And I'm sure every captain out there understands exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
some good words.
I worked with this company, Seaview, and they've got a deal called Ocean Imaging. I know there's several good providers out there, and Time Zero's got a great one too. It's the old Nobletech people. I'm just not as familiar and as comfortable with it, but I'm just starting to get really good with. I shouldn't say good. I'm really starting to learn their program more, but. Seaview I've been working with since 1985. We used to have those old 208A, the old Weatherfax machines, the ones that operated over a sideband frequency, and they'd give you your own sideband frequency, and then they would give you some really detailed sea surface temperature charts. So we've been working with them in these new regions that we're going with, and we're actually developing so that we can get the different shots, subsurface, chlorophyll, accurate current direction. You can do all the plotting with their stuff, and then you find everything you can with bottom contours and Google Earth, and every chart available, and you try and find out what currents make the fish show up in which regions and when, and then do the best you can to put it all together and schedule it, and hopefully some of it comes out right. But yeah, like Anthony's saying, I'm my own worst enemy, man. I wish I had a switch, shut it off.
I haven't been able to shut it off. Have you, Nick?
No, that's getting started.
Yeah.
I hope somebody could say something half as good what Anthony said about me one day.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Pretty kind of him.
Well, I have some bad stuff to say too, but we'll see.
I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, you guys been together for so long. Like how? Like I'm 33. I've been fortunate enough to be working with my owners for 10, and then we had a partner come in after, and he's been around for 6 years. Like, tell us about that, because that's not like something. It's kind of an anomaly to last that long within owner captain. I mean, it takes a lot of patience on both ends, and just a lot of give and take. Like, could you enlighten us a little bit on how it works, how it works?
How you guys make it work so well?
Yeah.
Well, all the patience is Steve to me, not me to Steve. So for my part, it's pretty easy. I mean, from my perspective, is I just have so much respect for the man, not only as a fisherman. I mean, Steve is one of my closest friends. I trust the guy, and throughout all of our changes for the last 2 decades, we never lost sight of the fact that we just both love fishing, and it's anyone that has fished with us, whether I'm on the front of the boat or the back of the boat, whether we're striped marlin, swordfish, blue marlin, or black marlin fishing, when we're hooked up, I don't say a word to Steve. I don't look at him. He doesn't say a word to me. I mean, we've been together for so long. I know his every move. He knows my every move, and there's almost no communications whatsoever. We just communicate through experience. But yeah, he's the hardest job that Steve has is not fishing and putting the boats together, and that's hard. You can imagine right now what he's going through right now, equipping all of this crap in a supply chain challenge, right? Just to get parts right now is a challenge. I mean, his hardest job is to keep me sane and manage me. It really is. So from my perspective, sometimes I just need to be told to slow down a little bit. I'm a natural go-getter, and I'm young enough to still do this well, and I want to be able to do this in the next few years before we all kind of burn out a little bit.
Yeah, man. For me, from my perspective, you just remember, even though he's my friend, he's still my boss, and he's still the owner, and he's got his expectations, and I do everything in my power 100% every day to meet those expectations. And then when I'm on the water, nobody's ever going to outwork me.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that I'm going to operate till I can't do it anymore. And when I can't do it anymore, I'm going to walk away. But I think if you work hard, you work really, really hard, and keep those things in mind. I spend the money like it's my own to the best of my ability, even though he's kind of getting a little bit out there with what we're trying to accomplish right now. But still, every time I look at every invoice, I measure, I weigh everything that I do. And I take it all personally. I take everything that we do personally. And I told him very early on when we first sat down, I said, the most important thing to me is our friendship. And if any of this stuff starts getting in the way of our friendship, let's stop whenever it starts to get that way so that we can continue to be friends. Because I really do like Anthony. He's a good dude, man. And he's given me so many opportunities to do the things that I truly love to do for the last 20 years. And, you know, I prefer to do them at a pretty high level. And he's okay with all that, you know? So I think, you know, it was one of those deals where the right owner and the right captain got together, and we've been having a really good time. We've caught a lot of stuff, man.
Did you ever see this getting to this point, Steve? Like, did you ever, I mean, you're basically the CEO of a company, basically, Steve. Like you run the whole thing. I mean, did you ever think in your wildest dreams when you were a kid that this would ever get to this point?
No, man, I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I just went fishing one day when I was a kid, and I packed a bag and threw all my stuff in it and threw it on a bunk and went fishing, and it just hasn't ended yet.
That's amazing.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You still get just as fired up out there, huh?
Well, you know, certain things do. It's all pretty fun because he allows us to get, you know, where they're at when they're there. When you're getting your crap beat out of you and bad weather and stuff's breaking, you know, in the middle of the night, and you're traveling and you're hanging upside down, sucking on a diesel hose or something, or getting burned out board the engine, you know, that kind of takes some of the fun out of it. And it's getting a little harder to get around some of those places for certain, you know, and Anthony's allowed me to get a couple of young guys that I'm mentoring, and they've got similar work ethic. You know, Kevin Bohannon's one of them coming up. He's a super hardworking young man, and Dan's doing a great job with the motherships, and allowing me to do those things and allows me to focus on everything that I need to do. And so far, I think things are going as with, like Anthony said, supply chain just been brutal, and our poor contractors, you know, poor guys, man. You can't yell at them, and you know, it's not their fault. We always seem to hire a good quality group of guys, but definitely a lot of challenges in this. It's already challenging enough, and then certainly some challenging times here right now, but it's all good, man.
How many guys do you have in your operation?
Shoot, I don't know.
Right now, total a little over 30. So
Wow,
it's quite a bit. It's quite a bit. But you know, if you really think of it, right? So guys like me that like yachts and don't like fishing, they start buying 200 footers or 250 footers. And when you get up into that 70 meter, 80 meter class vessel, you know, one single yacht, white yacht, you know, wine and cheese and all that kind of fancy stuff will have a crew of 25 to 35. So this is no different. It's just that we're more blue collar than that. And, you know, we just have fishing boats and motherships kind of spread out through the world. So that's how I'm justifying it anyway.
You don't have to justify it. It's freaking cool, dude.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Super cool.
I mean, like you think about the Madam and the Hooker and all those boats in, you know, years gone by, and you know, you guys are writing your own story. It's going to be amazing to see it. I hope you guys do a lot of videoing, because taking
somebody's going to be writing a book soon.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think it's important for us to call out, you know, all the legendary guys that did this, you know, without sonars and electronics, and, you know, without, you know, the fancy boats and engines and machinery and bait systems and the transportation and the motherships that we have today. I mean, they converted stuff to make it work. They just put in a heck of a lot of time. And it's because of that allows us to put together, you know, our program. And I think what we're doing, I mean, obviously for Steve and I and the rest of the team, you know, we're super excited about the exploration, and, you know, hopefully we see some stuff that will be, you know, lifetime memories for us. But I think it's good for the community. It's good for our industry. It's good for our sport. I think it's important for us to promote fishing. I think it's really important for us to sort of combat society a little bit that's starting to look at fishing as something that's cruel rather than something wonderful that friends and family should be able to enjoy without feeling the pressure that we're some type of monster because, you know, we're showing cruelty to the animals. So, you know, we just hope that it will invigorate and inspire, you know, others to to do something like this or even greater than this. We just want to do what's right for the sport. We want to uphold the elegance of our sport, and at the same time, we obviously selfishly want to be able to see some nice fish.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is there any any destination that you guys are like? I mean, you talk about Angola, Anthony. Like my uncle has been fortunate enough to go there and fish, and there's some big things living around that country.
Yeah, man. So any of that stuff that you know anything about, ring us up anytime. We're all ears. But for me personally, Anthony mentioned the Azores and Ronnie Fields and a couple other guys. They told me, I'm not name dropping or nothing, but these are just all quality people that I'm fortunate enough to know. And these guys are opening up their books and helping us. Just talking to us about this stuff. But he was one of the guys, and Kevin Hibbard, and they're like, you'd be trolling along for blue marlin, look over, there'd be a swordfish going finning down the side of the boat. But if you get a guy or two up in the gyro binoculars, that's what you do 8 or 10 hours a day for a ton of days. And if you're looking over the side and see one, we'll probably see quite a few. And I think that'd be really cool. And Ronnie said there was some big ones there. And then going back to Angola, I heard the blue marlin tail pretty good there, and we've seen enough video of these guys in these little outboard boats, and they're driving along, and it's like, look at that marlin tailing over there.
In some awful looking water, by the way.
Horrible, hideous looking water. And you're thinking, there's no way there's going to be a marlin in that. And you're expecting to see a shark or something. And nope, here comes this giant blue marlin, and it piles on and piles on and piles on. They hook it. So we have built Anthony a couple of. So typically when we're throwing out a swordfish, we kind of grade them first, and we'll either throw a 20 Talic, a 2-speed. We blueprint them all through cal sheets or a 25 or something, but we actually build them up a couple of 50s so that if we see some of these tailing blue marlin in those cool places that we hope a lot of people will say, hey man, people we trust like you, and say, hey, you should check this out. I want to go there, and those are the things I want to do, but we build a rod and reel that Anthony can cast off the bow at one of these giant tailing marlin and hook it, and then back off the drag and try and stay on the boat as he walks down to the side because he doesn't have a full bow rail, and then get in the chair, and fight it out of the chair. Or just chase it down off the bow. We do a tremendous amount of that, where boats go way better forward than they do backward. And so the vast majority of the sight fishing we do, except for the swordfish, tons of reasons. We won't go into that now, but we chase them down off the bow. It's really easy to let them go. It's just really more difficult to kill them if that's your mindset. But yeah, we might wind up, you just evolve and you roll with the punches. But we built several different sets of rods and reels to try a number of different techniques that might not be commonly used there. But the one thing that I really want to emphasize is we're certainly not going into this thing thinking that we know everything, man. I learn every single day, and I want to learn more every single day. And boy, we've got so much to learn still. And there's so many really good fishermen out there that we can learn from, and we want to. And we just want to be as successful with this as we can, but maybe try a few different things. So all these boats are set up. Even the little bitty one, that little 33 on LNH, I was joking about it. It's because you can cast off it too. So it's all sonar, bait tank, and fighting chair right now, man. It's just like I don't know how to explain it, but we're putting a toilet paper holder on the sonar hoist because it's right in front of the toilet. So that's kind of the way we're going about this stuff. And to finish my very lengthy answer, yeah, I'm very much excited to go to so many of these places. It's going to be fun. Ascension. Yep.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's definitely a bucket list for sure.
Yeah, man.
It's like 6 bucket lists.
Yeah.
we're joking, because when I hook a big swordfish, and you hook a striped marlin, different deal. You hook a swordfish, and it feels like you got a Mack truck that you're holding on to. It's not a big deal when you have full, bow rails, or in a 92 Jones Goodell or a 75 Delta. It's made for that kind of stuff. So you got full protection and full smooth, walking area. The 92 is probably 18 inches wide with full bow rail. So, you just walk towards the back there. You got a Spencer with a slippery deck and then that, little bow rails only extends back about 7 or 8 feet.
Mhm.
If I hook a tail in blue marlin, this thing's going ape shit, jumping all over the place. And I got a 50 with, 18 pounds of drag on it. I was laughing to Steve, man, we got to buy me those little kitty, things that go around the little floaties, just in case I go in.
Yeah.
But, you never know you just never know what we're going to encounter in doing some of these things, but it's going to be funny.
It's pretty wild. To see the excitement in your face is pretty incredible, man. Yeah. For all that you guys have seen, to hear that you guys are still as fired up as, me and Nick 10 years ago, or, you guys still, the passion.
I don't know if you guys have heard this story about Anthony or not, but the last couple of years he's gotten a helicopter. Have you heard of this?
I didn't know. Somebody had told me this, but I just I wanted to hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
So I'll go out a day or two ahead, and we'll load up on all the bait, and we've got to have a couple of different types of bait, and you got to be the right size, and you got to handle them just right, and you got to do all this stuff. So, and then, I'm watching the weather all the time, and it's, like I said, it's ever evolving. Sometimes just a 15 or 20 degree change in the rotation of the wind will completely change the area by 70 or 80 or 100 miles that you got to be fishing in. And so we're fluid, and we got to be moving all the time. So Anthony will send me out, and I'll start scouting around a little bit. And then he's like, well, where are you going to be? When are you going to be there? And so we'll call him up, and he choppers out, and they take the door off, and he jumps in out of the chopper and swims over to the boat, just about showtime. And we get him up on the boat, and we start fishing. Well, this one day, we were about 50 miles out. And as he was on his way, we found a big swordfish that decided to show a little half hour earlier than it was supposed to. And so we're sitting there waiting for this thing, and it's finning up in front of the boat, a really big one. And, Anthony, I'm not maneuvering the boat too much, and Anthony has to jump in real close behind the boat, and they got to get the chopper right on top of us. And he jumps in and swims over, soaking wet, head to toe, runs up to the bow and casts at this giant swordfish fin in front of the boat. We didn't get it, but it would have been a pretty cool story. But
yeah, it's a cool story already.
And then one more story. So we had this kid, Ryan Burr. He fished commercially with me for a bunch of years. Super good kid, great heart. And he heard we were going to go fishing, and I wanted to bring him out where we were. And so the chopper picked him up over in Avalon. He lives in Avalon, and he's in his Levi's, and he's got a grocery bag full of his clothes, and nobody told him he was jumping in. And they flew him out, and we're out in the middle of the ocean. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and he starts looking around. He goes, well, where are we going? And pilot's like, we're going right there. And he goes, what do you mean we're going right there? He goes, jump. We did. He jumped over the side with his Levi's on and his bag of clothes. But those are the types of, that's what makes life fun, huh? Stuff like that.
Hell yeah.
What's awesome.
I started doing that. Just give you a little, I mean, especially for any owners that will be listening to this. I mean, we all know, in order to make the money, time is valuable. And it's just, I start thinking about what can I do to save a little bit of time. And I have a company that has 10,000 employees. So, I do have a day job, and fishing just, working gets in the way of fishing. And this is just one way for me to save some time. I mean, a chopper can get me out, 50 miles within, 25 minutes. So I find a good spot. I look down, make sure there's no great whites, and then I go in.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Wow. Like part-time Navy SEALs.
Yeah. It's just just take off. Hey, they're biting. Like, you don't even wait till they're biting. You make them bite. Hey, I found one.
Yeah.
There you go. Be there in 20 minutes.
Yep. Come on.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. So we won't take up much more of your guys' time, but I asked a question on every pod about, it's kind of just how, like, obviously it's pretty easy to see that you guys are still enthusiastic, but maybe on slow days, or maybe when days are not going right, or something, or, you need something to kind of keep your head in the game. Is there a day or a time in your lives maybe that you revert back to and you say, man, this is why I do it? Or is, it's kind of like, it doesn't necessarily need to be a big day, or just a special day, special time or day. I mean, trip maybe for you guys, since you guys spend so much time like traveling.
I've never had a bad day in the water with Steve. I can say that. I can say that.
I was sitting here scratching my head too, and I don't know. we've been pretty fortunate. Been in some target-rich environments for certain, and
Hey guys, this guy will fish rockfish until 2 a.m. unless you tell him to quit.
yeah, pretty much. So, but we always had so many good guys surrounding us that, yeah, doesn't take much motivation, man. We're all burning pretty hard,
Yeah.
pretty hard all the time. Yep.
It's a pretty special thing when you guys can get a group of people on a boat that are all kind of going the same direction. It probably comes pretty naturally to you guys because you've been doing it so long, but it's still pretty special, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's very special. And that's when everybody's got the same goal and the same focus and the same desire, it really does make it easy where everybody's 100% committed, and it sure allows you to feel good about all the hours you're putting in and the time you're putting into it. And the results, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the way you're going to be the most successful, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and if you guys don't mind, I want to give a shout out to the team. Right now, Kevin and Bobby Lee are in Spain waiting for the Spencer to be offloaded, and they're going to run the Spencer 1,000 miles on its own bottom to Madeira.
Wow.
Dan, the mothership on the 150 in that group has been just absolutely they're just blazing trying to get that boat ready to go. So hopefully we'll be leaving in the next few days. We got Hoggy in Australia right now that is working on the Viking. We have still a few projects, including the sonar, Omni sonar, that's going in on the Viking. Down to the pilots that are researching all the appropriate places to go to so that we don't get hijacked. Down to the two ladies in the office that pay all the bills of these 11 boats.
Yeah, man.
And I'm sure we're missing some of the others, but it takes a no doubt a team effort to make this run.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's an incredible operation. Thank you guys. Thank you for your time and sharing it with us.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any way we could, in 4, 5, 6 months, catch up with you guys again and hear about how it's going, we'd really appreciate that because it's just an incredible thing you guys got going, and it'd be great to hear,
especially after the South Pacific. I would love to hear some of that.
I want to hear about Angola, man.
Me too. Fill me in, brother.
Hey, I tell you, man.
Brother up.
Steve and I have had many conversations, man. If you just look at the ocean currents and the volume of water, and if you look at the Pacific, man, that's the needle in the haystack. That's a big ocean.
Yeah.
Where the Atlantic is so much more. I love the Atlantic. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's a little bit more predictable, right?
Yeah.
Fish is traveling above the equator and below the equator. The Pacific, man, that thing is wide and fat, and you just don't know where those fish are going to be.
Pretty wild stuff, guys. And Steve, I'll get up with you, and maybe we can get some people. My uncle knows some people really well in Angola. We can help you guys out.
Yeah, any of those areas, man, please reach out. We want to be successful at this. We don't want to go out there and just flail around, and anything that helps us shrink the ocean down, man. We're 100% all ears. And, we just, like I said, we want to go have fun. And like Anthony said, we are getting older. I'm definitely running out of runway here. This is definitely my last push. So we'll go out and that's going to be it for me. We're going to do this one all the way to the wall as long as he wants to do it. And then I'm going to pull the throttles back and step aside.
Bullshit. That'll never happen. No way. No way. He'll run for mayor or something. No way. He's going to have to do something.
Well, that guy, one of our recent guests, Ross Finland, I'm sure you guys, know him. They're getting ready on the seaweeds to do, I guess, South Pacific as well. So I'm sure, Steve, you might want to connect with him.
Right on. That's good info, man.
Yeah, he's from Australia.
Yeah.
You probably know him, Steve. Is he's from Australia?
No, I don't, but I've heard the name for sure.
Yeah, they got a Ricky boat, and they have a mothership, and they're gonna get ready to head to Australia, and I think they're gonna do South Pacific. So,
right on.
Great.
Tom Francis has been he's offered a ton of help too. He's a good dude. That very fishy man also.
So,
all right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate your time, man. And we look forward to seeing some adventures from you guys.
All right, boys. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Right.
Right on. Yeah, I think the next one we ought to do live.